Hello and welcome to the Run Testers. My name's Nick, and in this video we're going to be comparing the New Balance Rebel V4 and the Asics Novablast 5. The Novablast and the Rebel are both popular and impressive daily trainers, two shoes that we love in general on the channel, I think it's fair to say, and they are both pretty competitively priced. The New Balance Rebel V4 is £140 or $140, whereas the Novablast is £135 or $140. The Rebel V4 is a fair bit lighter than the Novablast. It weighs in at 219 grams or 7.7 ounces, and that's in the UK 9.5. Whereas the Novablast is 274 grams in 9.7 ounces in the UK 9, although these are both US 10s. The Asics Novablast 5 has an 8mm drop, whereas it's a 6mm drop on the Rebel V4. The Novablast 5 definitely has the higher stack height, which is probably where some of the extra weight comes in. When it comes to the design of the two shoes, with the Novablast 5 you've got a jacquard mesh upper with a fair bit of padding around the back of the shoe, although not a lot on the tongue I would say. You've got a pretty stiff internal heel counter there to add some support at the back of the shoe. Then you have an FF Blast Max midsole, which is a new material that came in with the Novablast 5. It's a little bit softer than some of Asics' other foams, but in general a fairly balanced foam that provides a fairly stable ride, a fairly responsive ride, but nothing too special, but one that is quite well balanced all round. Got a reasonably wide base to make the shoe stable, and then an AHA low rubber outsole. With the Rebel, you've got a very lightweight mesh upper, a little bit of padding around the back, but not as much as you get on the Asics, and not much on the tongue at all either. Then you have a fuel cell midsole, and this blend of fuel cell on the Rebel V4 is 20% PIBA and 80% EVA, I believe, so it's not the best stuff that you'll get on New Balance's racing shoes, but still a pretty lightweight and responsive foam all round. Then you've got a pretty thick layer of rubber on the bottom of the shoe with a fair bit of exposed foam though, but key impact areas at the heel and forefoot are covered. You are getting more coverage, especially around the midfoot on the Asics Novablast 5 though.
So the fit for me in these shoes, in the Novablast 5, plenty of room. It's a very comfortable shoe, plenty of space before the big toe. It's not particularly thin shoes, so if you've got average size feet, you should be absolutely fine with this shoe. There's loads of padding on it. I quite like the tongue. It's a very comfortable shoe all round. I definitely stay to my size in this shoe. In the New Balance Rebel V4, I'm a size 8 in the UK. This is a size 8. I'd probably size up half a size in this because it's quite a lean shoe around the forefoot of the shoe. So there's not as much space before my big toe as I get in most other shoes. It's also, the upper is fairly restrictive. There's not a lot of room in this upper. And there's not a lot of padding either. It's definitely not as comfortable as the Novablast 5 for any run. It's definitely a shoe that's more designed for those faster runs where you want to minimise the weight and excess fabric on it. So I'd probably go up half a size in the New Balance Rebel V4.
So it definitely has some differences in terms of my fit experience with these two shoes. I'll start with the Asics Novablast 5. I've got this in a UK size 8, and that is my typical running shoe size. And I would say for most people, this is going to be a true to size fitting shoe. The New Balance Rebel V4, slightly different story. I've got this in UK size 9, so that's a size larger than what I would normally go in most shoes. But from a New Balance point of view, can be a bit mixed with the sizing. And I think going a size up in this shoe will be a better option, or something that maybe some people would have to look at. Elsewhere, you're getting pretty roomy kind of toe boxes, good hold at the midfoot. Again, that kind of roominess kind of extends to the midfoot of the shoe. Big kind of difference really sits around the heel collars. There's a lot more material on the Novablast 5 compared to the Rebel V4. So, you know, maybe need to work a little bit harder getting a good lockdown on the Rebel V4 compared to the Novablast 5. But yeah, generally, I think the main takeaway for me is that this shoe fits true to size in Novablast 5. For me, the Rebel V4 going half a size up or a full size up is probably going to be worth looking at.
Quick one on fit then. I ran in my regular running shoe size in both of these, which is a UK 8.5 in the Asics and in the New Balance. When you go to the New Balance Rebels, just about enough room clearing in the end of the toe box. Nice, roomy toe box, generally speaking. Feels sort of pretty loose overall. Decent flex around the kind of toe knuckles, which I really like. It's a spacious fit. That's how I like it. Then into the midfoot, I get good lockdown. It's no trouble here to lace this down and get it to hold nicely so that it hugs and feels secure, which is in a kind of slightly faster shoe, which I think this is. I really like the sort of minimal flat wrapping tongues here that just almost disappear. So then you go back into the heel collars and you've got these kind of medium padded heel collars, which I think do the job of holding really nicely. I felt nice and secured. There is a heel counter here. It's not too structured. There's a bit of flex in it, again, which I like. It's not overdone, just comfortable, just well held. Then you go over to the Novablast 5, and again, I've got good clearance in the toe box. This has a really nice, spacious roomy fit across the toes. I really like that, again, in a long cruising shoe that I'm going to wear. I've got lots of wiggle room. My toe knuckle areas here across the sort of midfoot here, they're held nicely and securely without feeling restricted. Same goes when I get kind of locked down across the top of the midfoot. I can just lace these in and have them held really securely without any troubles. Similar kind of minimal sort of wrapping tongues, which also take the lace pinch off and work really well. They've got a bit more substantial heel collar here. It's a bit more padding. That adds a bit more comfort than you'll get with the Rebel V4, but I would say a similar kind of hold. And overall, I think I'm happy with both of these, true to size.
Onto the fit of the two shoes. With the Novablast 5, I've got no concerns at all about the fit in my normal running shoe size. It's a pretty roomy upper for someone like me who has a narrow foot, but I had no problems getting good lockdown, nice amount of room around the toes, good hold around the heel and midfoot, nice amount of cushioning as well. I would stick to your normal size with the Novablast 5. With the Rebel, I did go half a size up because previous models of the shoe have been a bit tight on me, and I don't necessarily think I needed to do that. I think the Rebel V4 has a more accommodating fit than past models. It's certainly a fair bit wider, so I'd probably stick to your normal running shoe size. I was happy enough in half a size up, but I have tested my normal size as well, and that's been okay. But bear in mind that New Balance's sizing is a little bit different to Asics if you're using UK sizes, so they're half a size smaller in the way they convert to the US. So you might have a slightly tighter fit if you're going on UK sizes, but overall I would stick to your normal running shoe size with the Rebel will be the upshot of that. I think it's a pretty accommodating fit for New Balance, who do have a habit sometimes of going a bit tight with their faster shoes. I think it's okay in the Rebel V4 and the Asics certainly. I'd stick to your normal size.
Okay, so two daily shoes, but quite different on the ride for me. I'll start with the Novablast 5. Novablast 5 is a solid all-round daily shoe that is a little bit versatile, very, very comfortable, and has quite a nice, soft, but a little bit of energy return in the midsole as well. It's a very nice all-rounder shoe if you want comfort and maybe you want to do a little bit more in the shoe. I would say that I prefer the Novablast 4 to the 5. I just think there was a little bit more to that midsole. It wasn't as soft, and I do like soft shoes, but I also found that this shoe is not as responsive. I think the Novablast 4 just has a little bit more versatility in it, especially when you're running those faster, longer miles. But the Novablast 5 is a really solid shoe, very comfortable as cushion shoes go, and I think a lot of people will get on with this shoe because it ticks a lot of boxes. What I found about the shoe is that I really like this for easy runs, recovery runs, longer runs to an extent, but I do think the midsole is a little bit too soft for me when you go into the longer runs. I would like a little bit more responsiveness in it, especially if I'm trying to maintain a pace. But solid shoe all round, great workhorse, really shifts more towards that sort of cushioned cruising runs and the easy runs than the faster runs and the longer distance efforts if you're putting a bit of pace in the shoe. The New Balance Rebel V4 is quite different for me. So this midsole, it compresses quite a lot. There's not a lot to this midsole. I mean, it's not the smallest midsole in the world, but it's definitely on the leaner side of midsoles. What I found about this shoe is that I really like it for running faster efforts. If I'm doing 5Ks, 10Ks, interval sessions, things like that, really like this shoe for that. It picks up the pace nicely. It's nippy. It feels really lightweight on the feet. And it feels very much like a traditional lightweight training shoe where you're not really getting loads from that midsole. It's not the bounciest midsole in the world. It's not got a plate in it or anything, but it just feels light and nippy on the feet. And that foam feels really light as well. And it really works well when you're picking up the pace. For easy runs, I'm not as big a fan of the Rebel V4. I just think it's a little bit, that midsole just hasn't got enough in it for me for a nice, comfortable run, especially a long run. I wouldn't use this for anything over 15k maybe, and I find that midsole compresses a little bit too much for me. It just feels like I'm giving it a little bit too much effort into it and not getting as much back when I'm on those easier runs. On faster runs it's fine because it's got a nice bit of responsiveness, it's light on the feet, so you can really use it to your advantage there. But for those easy runs, it just feels like it's not really designed for that sort of comfortable cushioning that gives you a nice little bit of spring back so that it's a nice, enjoyable run. The outsole on these shoes, the outsole on the Rebel V4, very good. I've not had any issues with this at all. It's actually got quite a thick layer of this rubber. There is quite a lot of exposed midsole on it. Because the rubber's so thick, it's quite hard to actually get down to that midsole. So I've not had any issues in this shoe at all. Good grip as well on wet surfaces and things like that. Novablast 5, very good outsole as well. Nice thick layer of rubber on here. It's good bit of coverage, and Same with the Rebel V4. It does have some exposed sections, but it's quite hard to actually get to that. So pretty durable outsole and pretty good on wet conditions as well.
On to run test then, and you've got two good daily trainers here that I like a lot, that I think will suit lots of people very well, but maybe slightly different groups of runners if they're looking for daily trainers in particular. They sit probably at the slightly different ends of the daily trainer spectrum, with the Rebel V4 being a lightweight shoe that's a little bit more speed focused than the Asics, whereas Novablast 5 goes much more towards cushioning and stability and that kind of thing. So while there is overlap, they also maybe excel in slightly different roles. For some, the Asics is the shoe that they do absolutely everything in as a comfortable daily trainer that has a bit of versatility, and then maybe they'd have the Rebel as a pure speed focused shoe. And then for others, and I'd include myself in this group, I'd have the Rebel as a shoe I do lots of different kinds of runs in as a nice comfortable daily trainer that has a reasonable amount of speed, but overall I think it's just a great shoe for cruising around in. And a Novablast I position much more as a pure cushion shoe just for recovery runs, that kind of thing. It doesn't have quite enough versatility for my taste if I'm looking at faster runs. So the Rebel is probably the shoe that suits me a bit more then. I really like lightweight, simple shoes like this. It is comfortable and supportive though, and more so than previous generations of the Rebel. You've got that wide base there now that does give you more stability. I'm very happy to do long runs in this shoe and very relaxed, easy runs. And the fact that it is a bit wider does take away a bit of its speed and agility compared to past Rebels, but I was happy to do kind of track reps in this shoe, and it is still such a lightweight shoe that it is kind of fast by default. The foam isn't the most responsive or lively, but I do think you get a bit more back from it than the foam on the Asics when it comes to fast running. And then you've got that wide base to add support and increase the versatility of the Rebel as a easy day shoe as well. So I really liked it as an all-rounder. And the Novablast, the same. Like I say, for me it's more of a cushion shoe that I'd have at the easy end of a rotation, but it is still a pretty responsive shoe. You can run fast in the shoe, and I do enjoy doing that at times. You've got a fair amount of energy return off the forefoot, but the foam isn't quite as good as the stuff on the New Balance on that front, but you do have a lot of nice cushioning and support at the heel in particular, which does make it very comfortable at those easy paces. I think Novablast 5 is a bit more pushed towards comfort. I think that is probably the right choice for the majority of people looking for a daily trainer. A shoe like the Asics will work a bit better than the Rebel because it is more comfortable, stable, focused on providing that protection, whereas the Rebel is probably more of a risky purchase just to pick it up as your daily trainer to do everything. For lots of people it would just be more of a speed focused shoe, but if you do know your preferences are towards more lightweight shoes like this and you do like to use them for a bit of everything, the Rebel is still a really comfortable cushion shoe, I think, for those easy runs. Did a run of them at the same time, and actually the difference in the level of cushioning and comfort isn't as big as you'd think. Like, the Rebel is still a really cushioned shoe, I think. You do get more of it on the Asics, and that was noticeable under the forefoot in particular. Have a bit more of a rocket ride, I think, with the Asics. It's slightly flatter with the Rebel. You don't get as much of a tilt forward, but you do have a little bit more bounce from the foam under the forefoot. And it is also really noticeable just how wide the Rebel is, like on the run. It really does support each side of the foot, which does help with stability for a shoe that is so lightweight, and a bit more focused on speed. I'd also say, actually, on the run at the same time, that the Rebel being so much lighter than the Asics didn't actually feel that much lighter than the Asics when I did the run at the same time. Novablast is a really well balanced shoe, and it is pretty lightweight, but given the amount of cushioning here, it is very lightweight, I'd say. It is, and that does help it when it comes to versatility. It does have a bit more life in it than you might expect from such a big cushion shoe, and that's why I think these are both really good shoes in their different ways. Like, they both might excel in one area, but they do impress. So the Asics excels on the comfort front, support front, but actually is pretty versatile. The Rebel excels in being that lightweight, speedy shoe, but has enough comfort and stability for easy runs as well.
So in testing, I've done well north of 50 miles in the Asics Novablast 5, and I'm closing in on 25 miles in the New Balance Rebel V4. I've marathon tested the Novablast 5, but maxed out at around 8 miles in the Rebel V4. I've mixed up the paces from my slowest to around 5k pace. I've used both shoes on the road and on some light off-roads as well. The Novablast 5 is back to being softer and, for me, a little less lively, but though it's lost some of its top pace potential, I think it still offers a nice smooth ride that responds well on toe-off, feels springy but controlled. When you're feeling good, running with good form and pushing the pace, the Novablast 5 does feel energetic, but it's also cushioned enough to accommodate those slower paces as well. Though sometimes on heavier legs, it can feel a bit soggy. It did at the end of our marathon test. And I've had some other slow runs, or at least runs where I felt tired, where the softness in that midsole, certainly in a slower pace form, makes it feel like the shoe is working against you somewhat. Onto the New Balance Rebel V4 then, and the more connected, firmer, immediate ride with a pronounced rocker really suits my style. I like shoes that cushion without sinking too much and are a little bit more immediate. They come back kind of quicker, and the Rebel V4 has that nice balance to it. It's made for light and fast, and that's what I get from this shoe. It feels great on the foot as well. It's light and disappearing. It's got a roomier fit than many New Balance shoes, and it's a shoe that makes me want to move fast when I've got it on. I can run slow in it as well, though at the slowest end, I think for some runners it's probably lacking the protection, or at least that kind of cushioning and road eating that would give it the sort of full pace versatility for longer miles, longer slower miles. I also did a side-by-side mile with one shoe on each foot, and here is what I found. So then I've just done my side-by-side mile. I've got the Asics Novablast 5 on the left foot, I've got the Rebel V4 on the right foot. Both of these I would describe as comfortable, nice disappearing fit, nice and roomy, nice and spacious in the toe box, hold well with good security, good disappearing fit overall. So the biggest difference that you notice when you put these on side by side is the bigger stack on the Novablast 5, and I should say the bigger, softer stack, because it is notably more cushioned than the Rebel V4, which feels lower, it feels more connected to the ground just when you put them on and walk around the kitchen, but when you get out and get moving, you really notice that you feel more of the ground coming up through the Rebel V4. So it's a more connected ride. It's a ride that I think it's still snappy and still fast, but you're not going to get that sort of soft, cushioned edge that you have with the Novablast 5. That's kind of come new to the Novablast 5, or at least it's flipped back again to being softer. The Novablast 4 was a bit firmer and a bit snappier. It's now much softer underfoot than the Rebel V4. I think both of these shoes can do a really good job as a go-to daily trainer across a range of paces. The Novablast 5 is definitely going to be better, I think, on those kind of slower, longer runs than the Rebel V4, which probably won't offer quite as much protection as some people will want if you're getting into the sort of 2 hours plus runs. The flip side, I think, though, is also true. I really much prefer the slightly snappier ride of the Rebel V4, and for shorter, faster stuff, it just feels a little bit more lightweight. It feels a little bit more agile. I quite like the fact that it requires you to pick up your feet quite quick. You know, you have to work with a fast foot turnover to get the most out of it. When you do, it works really nicely. I think the other differentiator here might be how you strike in the shoe. I definitely think the Novablast 5 is going to protect heel strikers a bit more. There's a bit more softness in the heel, so a bit more cushioning going on there. Again, the Rebel V4, it's just a bit more, it's not blocky, that's not the right word, but it isn't quite as forgiving.
Now, in terms of my running time in these two shoes, I've done roughly the same mileage in both, probably a little bit more in the Rebel V4 because it's just been out longer, so I've had it longer to test. Now, for me, these are two very solid daily trainer options. I do think, though, they are daily trainers that have slightly different profiles, and I'm personally, I would be using them slightly differently if I had them or one of these shoes in my rotation. Part of that is down to the weight of these shoes. Now, the Novablast 5, it's not a heavy shoe, and you compare it to other most cushioned daily trainer shoes, it's kind of there and thereabouts. New Balance Rebel V4 is significantly lighter, and I think that's part of why I found it a lot more comfortable to run a little bit quicker in that shoe. That's not been the only reason, there's other things going on here with that shoe, but I think it just works a little bit better if you prefer a lighter kind of daily trainer shoe. When we're getting into those kind of, the elements in terms of the cushion technology, the rides, what that kind of generates, the kind of rockers that you're getting here, for me in the Rebel V4, it definitely veers more towards faster running and more up-tempo running. Just when you get out on it, it just wants to push you kind of from heel to toe a little bit quicker, and it has a slightly snappier feel, particularly at the toe. And I think when you want to run a bit quicker, that's where I found it's come into its own. 5K, 10K, shorter runs, kind of faster kind of interval sessions. I think this is a shoe, the Rebel V4, that can do that, and there's enough in that rocker and ride to really give you some aggressiveness there from there, where this doesn't have a plate in like some other kind of more tempo daily trainer shoes. For me, the Novablast 5, I think, you look at previous Novablast shoes, I think particularly something like Novablast 4 definitely had a more of a versatile feel to it. I think that's been lost a little bit in place of giving you something that's a bit more comfortable, I think a bit more protective. And I think if I was picking a shoe to do a long kind of weekend run, I would be using the Novablast 5, particularly if I wasn't, out there to run my fastest, run at my kind of, half marathon, kind of 10K kind of pace. If I was just looking to get out there, just bank the running time, then I know the Novablast 5 will give me a much more kind of comfortable, smooth kind of experience. There's still enough in the rocker to make sure you're ticking through very nicely, but I think, if you want something a little bit more wild, I think the Rebel V4 is going to give you that. But I would be kind of reserving that for kind of shorter runs, personally based on my running time. Another thing to talk about here is outsoles. The outsoles have been pretty good for me, but there is more rubber on the outsole of the Novablast 5. So, I would say that you're going to get a little bit more durability out of this shoe. I think the gripping has generally been fine, but I think, if I wanted to use these shoes on roads and pavements, they'd be okay. If I wanted to go on lighter trails, the Novablast 5 will be better suited to going a little bit off-road. So yeah, generally, I think I've had a good experience in both of these shoes. I think I would be using them slightly different if I had them in a rotation, but it's not to say that these are daily trainer shoes that can work for different people. I just think there's probably one that I would pick over the other. So my take whether you should go for the New Balance Rebel V4 or the Asics Novablast 5, I think it really depends on what you want from a shoe that you're going to use for your kind of daily runs, and maybe use to be the shoe that kind of soaks up a lot of your running and you keep something for race day. Now, if you're looking for the shoe that's going to give you a nice faster feeling, it's a no-brainer, go for the New Balance Rebel V4. It's lighter, more sprightly, just feels a little bit more fun to run faster in, and that's where I've really found it, best used in my time. If you want the shoe that I think is more comfortable, can be a good shoe for long runs, I think it's probably going to be a lot more accessible for more people and more runners. It's going to be a good shoe for beginner runners as well. I think more people are going to get along with the Novablast 5. As I said, this fits better and more true to size than the Rebel V4, which I've had to play around with the sizing. But I think in terms of giving you more comfort, giving you more protection, over kind of more mileage and over longer distances, the Novablast 5 is going to give you more. If I had to pick, I would be having the Rebel V4, and I'd probably be fitting it in with another shoe that I know I can use for those longer runs, or give me the comfort that you can get from the Novablast 5.
On to the verdict then, and for my choice, I prefer the New Balance Rebel V4 out of these two, and it's the one I'd use as my daily trainer if I was picking, but this is going to be very much a horses for courses thing, and I think if I was recommending one shoe to do a bit of everything to a runner I didn't know that well, I'd always go for the Novablast. It's the one I'd recommend to heavier runners, newer runners, runners in general just looking a bit more support. I think it is a shoe that really will work well for such a wide range of people. It's an easy one to recommend, and it's pretty good value as well. The Rebel, I think, is one that I'd recommend to runners who I know their preferences a bit more. I'd recommend it to everyone as a speedy, lightweight shoe. For lots of runners, it maybe doesn't offer enough cushioning underfoot and support to be used as their all-rounder to do everything in, but if you do know you prefer this kind of shoe, I think it really is an excellent all-rounder because of the extra support they have now on the Rebel V4 compared to past models. So it would be the daily trainer I'd pick out myself. Could look at using them both in a rotation as a pretty good value two-shoe rotation there with the Novablast, picking up more of those easy runs, long runs, and then using the Rebel much more for your speed work and that kind of thing. But yeah, there is a lot of overlap, and they are great versatile shoes, and which one you go for might just depend on your preferences, running style, and exactly what the majority of those runs are going to be like. If you're doing a lot of progression runs, and even your easy runs have a little bit of tempo in them, I think the Rebel is the slightly better pick. But if you do a lot of flat out easy recovery stuff, lots of long miles where you just want support, the Novablast does that a bit better.
My verdict on these two shoes, it's a tough one because I don't think they're necessarily designed for the same thing. They're both daily shoes from the brands, but I think they skew towards different sides of that easy to harder run spectrum. It's definitely the New Balance Rebel V4 I'd pick if I was doing a lot more faster training sessions, definitely shorter training sessions like interval sessions and things like that as well. Whereas I think the Novablast 5 is an all-round daily shoe that can do a bit more if you want it to. The midsole is very nice in this, and for most people I think it would do pretty well for things like tempo runs and stuff like that. But I probably wouldn't use this for interval sessions or faster efforts like I was on the track or anything like that, because I don't think that midsole's got enough speed in it like the Rebel V4 has with that nippy factor. So if I'm choosing between these two shoes, it's a tough one because I think they're designed for different things, but I think the best value out of these two shoes is probably the Novablast 5. I just think it's a better all-round shoe for most people, and when you compare it with lots of the other max cushion shoes out there, I think it's a very good option, which is a bit cheaper than some of the pricier ones on the market at the moment.
Verdict then, and you've got two versatile daily trainers here that can cover a similar range of runs depending on your preferences and priorities. I like them both. I wouldn't really say that one shoe is necessarily massively better than the other. I think they offer different rides and come at those runs in a sort of slightly different way, particularly now that Novablast 5 is back to being a bit softer. The best shoe for you is going to boil down to your preferences. The Novablast 5 for me is softer, more cushioned, and it gets its energy from a bit of bounce. It can do fast, it's happy cruising, and it's soft enough for slow. The Rebel 4, on the other hand, is firmer, snappier, less cushioned, more immediate. It relies more on the rocker and a faster foot turnover to get the best out of the shoe. And to me, it feels faster underfoot, a little bit more nimble and agile, or at least it wants to go faster anyway. If you prefer shoes that dampen the road more, go for the Novablast 5. If you like to feel the ground more, go for the Rebel V4. If you prefer a more compact shoe that feels more precise, go for the Rebel V4. For me personally, I take the Novablast 5 on runs like 2 hour plus runs, where I knew I'd be moving slower than marathon pace, but might throw in some faster stints as well. I'd definitely take the Rebel V4 for shorter runs where I'd be moving around marathon pace and faster, or for shorter, faster workouts. Now, if I have to get off the fence and choose just one shoe out of these two, I think at a push, for me, it would be the New Balance Rebel V4, primarily because I just like that kind of smaller, more compact, agile, firmer, snappier ride that you get over the sort of super soft cushioning but I can cope with that in the way that I run.
That's a comparison of the Asics Novablast 5 and the New Balance Rebel V4. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, ring the little bell. See you next time.